Hey everyone, it's me, Romy Marks, your tangled yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to the Garden of Hope Zentangle inspired class. I just taught this class for the Napa Public Library last weekend, and I thought I would share it with you as well. So let's talk about the things that we're going to need for class today. I'm going to be working on a tile that's 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches, and it's super smooth paper. You can use cardstock or your favorite sketchbook. All you have to do is just draw a square that's 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches, and you're ready to go. I will be working with a graphite pencil, and I will be working with a blending stump. If you don't have a blending stump, run into the bathroom and grab a Q-tip. Those work great in lieu of a blending stump. I'm also going to be working with the Pigma pen, but this is the same pen as the Sakura Micron PN pen. Okay, so you can use that as well. I will be working with the Jelly Roll 10 for doing some highlights a little bit later. And then you know me, I'm a Prismacolor girl. Grab your Prismacolor pencils. We're going to have a lot of fun with this. And if you don't have Prismacolor pencils, just grab whatever color pencils you have and play along. We're going to have a lot of fun. With that said, let's get started with the Garden of Hope. So before we begin our Zentangle practice, many of you know that I like to do a little bit of a centering exercise. So go ahead and take a comfortable seated position here, letting your feet touch down onto the floor if they can, and letting your spine grow comfortably tall. Allow your shoulders to melt away from your ears, and let your hands rest into your lap. And if you feel comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes for a moment, letting your attention come to your breath as you breathe in through the nose and gently exhale through the mouth. Breathing in through the nose and gently exhaling through the mouth. And one more time here, in through the nose and out through the mouth. And staying with your breath here for the next few moments. And as we breathe, I'm going to share a quote, and this one's from Audrey Hepburn, and she says, "To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow." And as we create today, bringing these flowers and bees to life, really planting the seeds for hope and for that beautiful garden. And taking one more deep breath right here. Let it go with a sigh. And in your own timing now, blinking in the eyes and wiggling in the fingertips and toes as we get ready to create. Let's begin by picking up our graphite pencil here. I'm just going to start the regular old-fashioned Zentangle way here by coming into my corners and placing a dot in each of the corners here. Then you'll see me come in and I will start to create a nice border that's going to work around the whole piece here. And you can see I've got a little wiggle and wobble in my line today. That's just fine. I'm not looking for perfection here. I'm looking for handmade. So I'm turning the tile and getting that nice frame going here. Now once I've got that frame going, I'm going to look at the top line here, and I'm going to look for where I think the middle is, and I'm just going to make a little dot here. And I'm going to go ahead and start to make a very light line. Remember, this is a string line, so we don't press hard for this. And you can see that I've divided the space in half. Now I'm going to take my tile and I'm going to turn it, and I'm once again going to go ahead and try to find the middle there. I'm just kind of eyeballing it here, and I am dividing the space in half once again. So you can see that I've got 4 squares here. Now once I've got those 4 squares, I'm going to go in towards the middle and make a nice, I would say it's like a medium-sized circle here. And then I'm going to do an aura around the circle. Now if you need to pause me here, you can, or I'm just going to continue on here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the middle of this line right here. So you can see that this would be about the middle. I'm just going to drop down a little bit below the middle and make a little dot. Turning the tile clockwise here, coming up to where I think the middle is, and then just dropping down a little bit. One more time. Here's the middle, dropping down just a little bit. And last one right here. Now once I've got those the way that I want them, you can see that I've got these little dots that are orbiting around the center here. On my circle, on the aura here, I'm going to look for where the middle is, and I'm just going to make a little dot in each of these where I think the middle is, so that it'll look a little something like this. Now once I have that, I'm going to start to build a leaf-like shape. So it's going to look a little something like this, where it just connects to those dots. I'm going to turn my tile clockwise, connecting to those dots. Connecting. And here comes the last one right here. So that once I have that, I've got this really nice flower-like shape. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to continue building our string. So we're going to continue to build our string here. And what we're going to do is we're going to come from this corner and land at the tip of our petal here. And we're going to create a nice curved line. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by coming from this corner, and you can see that there's a little curve to that line as I attach. Turning my tile and dropping in, turning the tile, dropping in, turning my tile, and dropping in. Now once I have that, I'm going to start to create a little bit of an aura throughout the entire piece here. So I'm going to come back to this point that I have right here, and you'll notice that when I start it's narrow, but as I move outwards it gets a little bit larger, and then I'm going to dive into this valley here, and then I'm going to come back out and touch the edge, just like so. I'm going to turn the tile, coming out to this corner right here, jumping out, gets a little wider, dropping down and in and then out and touch the edge. Turning my tile, coming back to that corner, starting out narrow, getting a little bit wider as I come out, diving into that valley and out. One more time. Coming from that corner, starting out narrow, get a little bit wider, dropping in and over, so that we end up with this really pretty kind of moving tangle. It has a lot of flow to it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to connect my lines. And if you need to pause me here, this is a great place to do it, so that if you need to catch up, you can. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right up here in this corner, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to come down from the corner, and I'm going to make it look as though this line is continuing underneath this area right in here. I'll come back to that center point, and I'm going to come over and in, and you can see that these two are now looking as though they're connecting. Let's do that again. Turning the tile clockwise here. Coming to this point, we're going to be working with that inner one first. Coming in, and one more time. Coming in. Turning the tile. Coming in. And one more time. Coming in. And last one right here. Starting from that point, dropping in, and one more time, dropping in. So that you can see we get this beautiful string in the center point. I think you're really going to enjoy working with it. So take a moment to finish yours up, and I'm going to go ahead and start to pick up my black pen. And I'm going to start this the way that I always start an overdraw, and I'm starting with the center. And you can see that I'm really going to take my time with this so that I get some really nice lines. And once again, going all the way around. And then I'll start to build up those beautiful petals that we're going to be working inside of. Turning the tile. Turning the tile. Continuing. Once I've got that center point done, I'm going to go back in the same way I did before, and I'm going to start to build those auras. So I'm just going over from the corner. You can see that I'm taking my time. I'm going to connect. I'll turn. I'll go to the next one. Just remembering how we got here. I think it's a really wonderful way to train the brain into remembering how we actually did what we did. The body does create a felt memory inside of it, and so, it might seem very familiar when you actually come back and do the steps again. Once I've got all of those whirls going, I'm going to come back in and start to do the auras. Just taking your time, and if you wanted to correct any lines that you didn't care for, this is a really great space to do that in. So all I'm doing is just retracing my steps, creating those auras that dip into the valleys and then drop out. Once again, can see that it goes from being fairly narrow to having a little bit of thickness in the line. And then finally I'm going to start to connect my lines here. So you can see that I'm just going to drop in from the corner, connect, making it look as though that line is continuing underneath. Same thing over here. And then I'm turning the tile, coming in, connect, and then once again making it look as though those lines are intersecting there. Here we go. Having some fun. And last one right here. Really taking your time. And there you have it. We've got that really beautiful string in the center here. You're going to see me pick up my little gummy eraser, and I'm going to let go of my string that I have on the inside here, but I'm going to leave my little frame on the outside edge here. Okay, so once I've got my string outside or cleaned up, no more graphite in there, I'm going to go ahead and start to bring in that outside frame in a second. So now if you wanted to, you could do an interrupted frame, which would be really pretty with this. In fact, I think it might be a great way to go, but you can do whatever you want, or you can do a nice solid frame if you like. In fact, you know what? I think I'm going to do a solid frame on this one. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and just very gently start to bring in my frame, turning the tile, keeping it nice and steady here, taking your time, there's no rush. And connecting, just like so. So there you have the frame and the string all together. And I really hope that you come back and do lots and lots of fun stuff with this particular string. It's a lot of fun. All right, so when we come back, we're going to start to tangle. I'll see you in a minute. Let's begin with our first tangle of the day here. So this tangle is called Budding, and it's one of my new favorites. I have to say, I think that this tangle is quite beautiful and it's really nice and easy. So here we go. So many of you know the tangle Flux, and Flux is just a teardrop shape. So I'm going to start with a teardrop shape that's kind of tilted off to the side here a little bit. Now, once I've got that tilted teardrop, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to make a spiral that has a little bit of a hook in the center. Now, once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop down and give this a little bit of roundedness. And then I'm going to drop into the center and bring in a line, and then drop out on the side here. And that is budding. Now, you can do all sorts of things with budding if you wanted to. You could come in and add some more petals around it to make it look a little bit more full, which I always think is kind of a nice way of playing with the tangle and just giving it a little bit of interest. And then if you wanted to add a nice stem to it, you could come in and create a beautiful stem. You could even, give those little pieces that come off of a rose and make it look even more like a flower, which is really, really fun. So there's a lot of fun things that you can do with this. But for today, we are going to just stick with the centerpiece here. So this is what it's going to look like. Let's bring in our original piece here. And I'm going to start right here in the center. And we're going to be working in these small little leaf-like shapes that we have. And I'm going to start with this bottom piece here. And I'm going to come up just a little bit, and then I'm going to drop down and over to create that flux-like shape. Now once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to round it off, creating that nice hook in the center there. And then I'm going to do a soft rounded piece coming down. I'll go ahead in the center and drop in, and then on the side and drop in. And there you can see we've got budding right in the center, which is super, super pretty. So I'm going to turn the tile clockwise and we're going to do it again. So I'm just going to come up near the top here, make a nice kind of rounded line, and then I'm going to go ahead and create that teardrop shape. Once I have that, I'm going to do a nice soft rounded hook in there, and then do a rounded line that comes down. I'm going to drop in, and then I'm going to drop over. Turning the tile here, coming up and out, and then making that nice teardrop shape. I'm going to create that kind of a hook in here, and then round off the side, dropping in, and then dropping in. Here comes the last one right here. You can see how fun and easy this one is. Coming up and over, create that teardrop shape, round it out, round off the side, dropping in and dropping in. So now we've got budding right in the center of our piece. Isn't that such a fun tangle? I know that I'm going to be playing with that tangle for years to come. It's such a great one. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start in with a little bit of color. I know, really, really early, right? But we've got a lot of wallpaper we're going to be doing today. So for our next tangle, because we're going to be doing wallpaper, we're going to start to lay down some color. And I've picked up two color pencils here that I'm going to be working with. This is the light aqua. This is PC992 in the Prismacolor set. And then I also have in my hand peacock blue, which is PC1027. Now remember, if you don't have the same colors as me, don't worry about it. What I'm really looking for is a light blue and a dark blue. We're going to be using those to actually build up the piece today. You can see that my pencils are really well sharpened up, and that's going to be pretty important for this next part, so make sure you grab your pencil sharpener. So I'm going to start by picking up the light blue first, and you can see the way that I'm holding the pencil. My thumb and my index finger are holding it, and then I'm going to use the side of the pencil instead of the point to create the background here. So let's go ahead and zoom in on the petal here. So I'm going to take this pencil. Now remember, each color pencil that we're working with is three different colors. It's light, it's medium, and it's dark. It's all about the amount of pressure that you're putting on the pencil. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to start by laying the pencil on its side, and I'm going to start to rub in that pencil nice and light. I'm really just establishing a background here. And you can see that I'm moving in little circular motions. Now, once I have this, I'm going to start to work my way outward. And you can see that what that's doing is starting to build up a really nice mist of that light aqua. Now once I've got that light mist of aqua in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that darker color here, and I'm going to do a little bit of what we call perimeter shading. So I'm going to very, very lightly go into the points here and start to bring in a little bit of depth into the corners here. You can see I'm almost rounding them off with that color. I'm going to come up towards the top and give that a little bit right at the peak there, and then I'll also come down into the point in here, giving that a little bit of depth. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and start to give this a little bit of intensity right at the point. Same thing over here, and same thing over here. Down at the bottom as well. Now I'm going to come back in with a little bit of that light blue, and I'm going to start to blend in a little bit of that light blue and the dark blue together. And you can see that I'm using a really, really light touch, and I'm using a little circular motion. It's almost as if I'm trying to create a mist of color or a fog of color. Coming over to the side here and just letting that roll over. And same thing up at the top. Giving that a nice softness here. Now once I have that, I'm going to pick this nice white pencil up. This is PC938. I love this pencil for doing a little bit of shading here or blending, and you can see that I'm just going to roll that right over where those darker colors are meeting the lighter colors, and you can see that it creates this really nice, almost buttery effect on those colors. And if you want to, you can roll through your piece and just give a little bit of softness to that background. You can see that I'm working in little circular motions here and just giving this a really nice soft appeal. Once I have that, I'm going to start to work in the other petals and start to give that the same treatment. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to tangle wallpaper style. Here we are. Look at how pretty that is with that in the background. So let's talk about the tangle that we're going to bring in here. So many of you know that my family is from Ukraine, and a couple of years ago when the war in Ukraine first broke out, I took a class with Joanna Quincy, and she really did a beautiful class outlining Petrikivka, and that is the beautiful Ukrainian ornate folk art that is done on beautiful Easter eggs and all sorts of different things. It's really quite ornate and beautiful. And so one of the things that got me started on was just researching this beautiful art form. And I came across a really beautiful flower that seemed very similar to a Zentangle called Opali. So let's learn Opali here. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. So Opali looks a little something like this, where you have a nice teardrop shape, and then right off of the center you drop out, and then you go again, and then the same thing on the other side, and then you go again. Now with Opali, and some of you who have been doing my videos for a while, you know that I've done this tangle in a couple of videos. They do this really nice arc over the top of it, and it's a beautiful tangle. Now, for our purposes today, we're going to build off of Opali here. And so it'll look a little something like this. It's going to start with our really nice flux-like shapes, and you can see that I'm kind of weaving back and forth like we do. And then I'm not going to cap it off on the top. What I am going to do is I'm going to build out by arcing out, and then I'm going to drop in, and I'm going to attach to the center. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to line it up, I'm going to arc out, and then I'm going to drop in and bring it into the center. Now I'm going to do a couple of these on either side here and attach into the center here. And then in this one that's right underneath the Opali, I'm going to add some orbs in here. And you can see these orbs are kissing each other, they're touching. And it's just going to add a little bit of interest into the tangle here. Now once I have that, I am going to add a little bit of a stem on this, so I'm going to let it drop down and in, giving it a little bit of wave, and then I'll come in and I'll do another piece just like so. I'm going to go out and start to create a leaf-like shape on each side, just like so. And then for this particular piece, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it a little bit of a leaf curl, just like that. And so that is the way we're going to tangle inside of our petals here. So let's bring it in, shall we? Okay, so we're going to let go of our pens, and I want you to pick up your dark blue pencil. You can see that I'm going to go ahead and sharpen up mine just to make sure that I've got a good point here. Make sure that everything's nice and clean. And let's just start right here. I'm going to drop down towards the center here, and I'm just going to make a little bit of a dot where I'm going to begin. You can see that my pencil is really well sharpened up. The reason why I like a nice sharp pencil is whenever I'm doing wallpaper, I like to have a really nice clean line. And when you have a really nice sharpened edge, you get a really beautiful clean line. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to arc out. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'll go again. And once I've got those in there, I'm going to start to branch out a little bit. So I'm going to come right in here, arcing out, dropping in, and connecting to the bottom. Same thing to the other side, dropping out, and then coming in and connecting to the bottom. Same thing, I'm going to drop down here, and then connect. Same thing over here, and connect. So now I've got this beautiful ornate flower that we have here. I'm going to go ahead and start to create that nice wave of a line for a stem here, and then another one right in here. I'll go ahead and bring in a leaf-like shape, and then I'll bring in another leaf-like shape. Bringing in that nice little curl and a nice little curl here. Now remember those orbs that we were talking about? I'm going to bring them in to that secondary tier that we've got here. And you can see that I'm keeping them nice and small here, beautiful and ornate. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Just like so. Isn't that so beautiful? I just love the way that that looks. It's super, super pretty. So I'm going to go all the way around and I'm going to bring in that flower all the way around to these pieces. Now I will add just a couple of orbs that are going to float out of the top here. So I'm just going to do one right here, one over here, and one over here. And just make it look as though these orbs are effervescing off of the top. Okay? All right, you do yours, I'll do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to shade this, and it's such a beautiful tangle to shade. Let's start to bring some shading into this piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and focus in on this one right in here. You can see that I'm going to go ahead and pick up my lighter blue just for the moment here, and I'm going to start to bring in a little bit of shading right through that central flux-like shape. Once I have that, I'm also going to bring in a little bit of shading on the outside edge of each of these little petals that I have on the outside. Notice how I'm bringing a little bit of that lightness in towards each of the petals here. So you can see I'm leaving a little bit of light there. Same thing over here, and I'm keeping it nice and light. I'm not pressing hard at all. The color just wants to grab onto that original foundational color. I'm going to start to bring in just a touch underneath those orbs just to get them to pop and really pop forward. Same thing over here. Just like so. And then in the bottom piece, I'm also going to bring in a little bit of that lighter blue. Now to bring even more definition into the piece, I'm going to pick up that darker blue pencil again. You can see that it's pretty well sharpened up, and I'm just adding a little bit of definition right at the very bottom there. I'm going to very softly start to bring in a little bit right on the edge, just to give that a little bit of definition or a little bit of weight. Same thing over here. And I'll go to the other side. Coming in over here. And then over here. And you can see that's already starting to really come forward there. I'm going to just do a little bit of blurring of my lines in here just to soften it up. Same thing over here. I'm just giving it a little bit of that blur. Now if you want to, you can come in with a little bit of your white pencil and clean it up just by giving it a little bit of softness and a little bit of that circular motion with the pencil. And same thing over here. And isn't that so pretty? Let's let a little bit of that darker blue start to work its way down into our stem here. Just getting a little bit of a shadow underneath and a little bit coming up from the bottom. I'll take that lighter blue and I'm going to tease that color down just a little bit. And also from the bottom up, leaving a little sheen in the center of that piece. I'll come in with a little bit of that darker blue again inside of our leaves that we have here. And then I'll give that a little bit of a blur as well. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and start to come back up to where my orbs are. And I'm going to give this just a little bit of that darker blue. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that lighter blue and I'm going to blur it in, leaving a little bit of light source in that upper left-hand corner. And you can see that this gives this almost a Delph-like quality to the piece, so that when I zoom out, look at how different it is from here to there. Very flat in here, just kind of the beginnings of the piece, whereas this has a really nice depth to it that's quite beautiful. So go ahead, do that shading in all of these. If you need to rewind and listen to me talk about it again, you can. But just really have fun with this. This is such a gorgeous way to tangle and have fun with color at the same time. I hope you enjoy it too. I'm going to go ahead and continue to carry some of that blue forward here. We're going to go back into where budding is, and we're going to start by bringing in a little bit of that light blue around our buds or our roses here. And you can see that when I zoom in on that, all I'm doing is just bringing in a soft dusting of that light blue, and then in the points here, I'm going to just add a little bit of that darker blue, and then I'll come back in with that lighter blue and blur that color out. So I'm running it right over the top of that darker blue and giving it a little bit of softness. And you can see what that does is it brings that bud forward and really gives it a really nice illuminated feel. Okay, so I'm going to go around to each one of these and do just that. So we have these beautiful areas on the outside edge of our tangle to play with, and I'm going to start to bring in our special guest in this particular piece here. And so for those of you who were in the class for Napa, we had such great feedback about our bees, and so I want to teach you how to do the bees. And so I want you to think about this little arch that we've got in here that we're going to be working with. So you can see that I've kind of created this little V-like area to mimic what we're going to be working with. So remember the idea of the flux that we've been working with, that tangle flux. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come up and make an upside down teardrop here. And then above that teardrop, I'm going to create an arch and then another little arch. Now for the wings here, I'm going to start by coming into this little indentation and doing a nice arc out and a nice arc out. Underneath, I'm going to make a cloud-like shape or a scallop, and it's going to attach right in here in that indentation. Same thing over here. And then I'll come in and do a soft arch and a soft arch. Now we can give this little guy a little bit of an antenna so that they can fly. And then I'm going to start in with my little stripes. Now, when I pull my stripes, the way that I like to do it is I come in and I leave a little bit of lightness in the center just so that we get a little bit of sheen on this, and it just gives a much more interesting detail to this bee. And then I'll bring a little bit in towards the bottom and leave a little lightness in there. Now, each bee is going to be completely different. So I just want to say to this right off the top, don't be hell-bent on trying to make all your bees exactly the same. No human being is the same from the other, and no bee is the same from the other. So I want you to let your bees have their own character. Now, to give a little bit of lightness to these wings, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do these little dots that are just kind of coming out from the middle point to the point on the edge. And then I'm going to do these little kind of triangular pieces that also are dotted out. So it kind of looks a little something like this. And that just gives it a little bit of interest. And if I zoom in on it, you can really see those are just little dotted lines all the way through. Okay, so let's start to bring this into our piece. Let's go ahead and zoom out. And I know that once you start doing these bees, you're going to be completely addicted and want to do more of them. All right, here we go. So you can see there's the V that I was talking about before. I'm just going to go ahead and come up and create that flux-like shape or that teardrop shape. And then I'm going to do an arch and then another arch. And like I said before, each of these bees are completely different from each other, so let them have their own character. I'm going to go ahead right where the head is connecting, and I'm just going to arc out. I'm not going to go too far because remember it's a bee, so they have smaller wings. And then I'll come in and I'll do 1, 2, 3 and scallop back in. Same thing on the other side. 1, 2, 3 and scallop back in. And then underneath I'm just going to do these little rounded off pieces. I'm going to go ahead and start to do the detailing in the wing. So just little dots coming out. And then my triangles are moving outward away from the bee. And those are dotted as well. We want that line to feel inconsistent. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and add in some of my stripes. So I'm going to do, 4 lines there. And then I'm going to go ahead and pool my ink. And remember, you want to leave those lines or those little sheen marks in the center. And you can see with mine that I'm not making them solid. Like I have a little bit of an organic feel to them. They're not solid blocks. Okay. Same thing down here. I'm going to come down into his little point. And then I'll go up towards the top. And you can see there's my first bee. And he's got a little bit of a Rubenesque body there, and that's just fine. Every bee's gonna feel a little bit different. So I'm gonna go around to each of these little V's and start to do more bees in here and have fun with these, okay? I hope you enjoy creating the bees as well, and I'll see you in a minute. Remember, relax your shoulders and take a nice deep breath. Let it out and just play. So you can see all my bees are different. Some are more robust, some are smaller. It's just fine however yours turned out today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let go of the blues just for a moment, and I'm going to bring in some new colors. I've got yellowed orange in my hand, which is PC1002, and you can see that this is like a warm yellow here. And then I also have in my hand the orange, which is PC918, and really all I'm looking for is a warm yellow and a nice light orange color. That's really what I'm going for. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and focus back in on our bee here. And I'm going to start with the yellow first. And I'm just going to start to dust in the sides of the bee here. You'll see that I'm leaving that light source in the center like I did in the black, just to give him or her a little bit of sheen. And then I'm also going to come in with a little bit of that orange and just bring a little touch of it in on the sides. Now, if you want to, you could pick up your white and give it a little blur or a little softening. I've got a little bit of my white here. You want to make sure there's no blue that's on from where you were blending before, because it will turn whatever you're working on with the orange a little bit muddy. So you want to leave it nice and soft, okay? And make sure that it's clean. So I've got that really nice sheen going down the center of that bee here. And if you want to, you could pick up a little bit of your light blue and just bring in at the bottom of each of these little wings just a touch of that light blue to give it an iridescent feel. Because whenever you look at the wings of insects, they always have this kind of iridescent look to them, which is really quite beautiful. Now I'm going to take a little bit of that yellow and I'm going to start to come into the corners here. So I'm going to dust in a little bit of yellow first, and I'm going to let it come about halfway through. And I want it to give this kind of a sunset feel in the background. So I'm just going to give this a really nice light dusting. And then I'm going to pick up that orange and I'm going to bring it right into the corners here. And I'll come over to this corner as well and just give it a nice dusting. I'm going to pick up that yellow again, blur out the edge where the orange is meeting the yellow. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of that white and start to really blur out that yellow where it's starting to make its way forward, just to give this a softness. And you can see that when I kind of zoom out, it really does frame those corners in quite nicely. And if you want to get more dramatic with your corners, you can press a little bit harder with that orange just to give a little bit more pop into those corners there. Okay? So have some fun with that. I'm going to go all the way around and work with my bees and do the same thing. So I hope you're being good to yourself and enjoying the process. All right, let's come back to budding here, and we're going to continue to bring in the yellow and the orange together. And so I'm going to start in with budding here, and I'm going to start with a little bit of the yellow first and dusting it through, and you'll notice that I'm going to leave a little lightness up at this point right here. I'm going to dust in over on this corner right in here. And then I'm going to start to work my way around in towards here. I'm going to pick up that orange that I have here, and I'm going to just do these little soft depth pieces in here where we're going to get a little bit of interest inside of our rose here. You can see in the center I've gone and made that a little bit dark, and then I'm also going to bring a little darkness in here. Now I'm going to pick up that yellow, blur out any lines of demarcation that I have in here. And if you want to pick up your white, make sure that you don't have any other color on the white, and just start to really soften those colors up. Really give that a really nice look. Now I am going to pick up just a touch of crimson red. This is PC924. It's one of my favorite colors in the Prismacolor set. It's kind of the color of wine. And I'm just going to bring in some small detail work in here, and I'm just going to break that tip because I knew it was going to break anyway. And I'm just going to do these really soft little lines coming in just to give that a little bit of movement. And if you want to, you could even come in at the bottom of that rose and give that a little depth, and right at the center just a little bit of depth. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that yellow and soften that up a little bit. And you can see that that really brings that rose into fruition. Look at how these are really flat compared to that shading that's just gone on in there. Really, really nice. So I'm going to go around each of these and do that very same thing in those roses. You go ahead and do yours as well. So I'm going to let go of the colors that we've been working with, and I'm going to start to bring some graphite into the piece here. So I'm going to be working with my tortillon, or my blending stump, and then this is just a regular number 2 pencil. It's not anything fancy, but you do want to make sure that it's nice and sharpened up here. Now I always say that I learn a lot from my students, and I love how my students will go off the rails and do interesting things. And one of my students did a beautiful shading job with this piece, and so I want to give a shout out to Jen, who did such a gorgeous shading job that I'm incorporating it into the video here. So let's go ahead and focus in, and we're going to focus in on this area right in here. I'm going to take the graphite here, and I'm going to do just a very soft dusting of graphite on the outside edge, and I'm going to do it on the inside edge as well. And you'll notice that that's leaving a little bit of a light source in the center of that little ribbon or string that we have here. I'm going to take a little bit of my tortillon, and I'm going to start to blend it very softly just to blur the line and get a little bit of organicness in the tangle. And you can see how it really develops that sheen in a very nice way. So I'm going to be using this technique throughout the piece here. So I'm going to go over to this side and start to just very, very slightly start to add in a little bit of that gray or that graphite into the piece here, and I'm going to continue to do that on the other side. You'll notice how we're starting to get that sheen in the center. I'll go ahead and start to blur that graphite out a little bit, getting that softness or that blurriness. And just getting in there to develop that really nice sheen. And if you want, you can come back and add in a little bit more darkness along the edge just to get some nice drama on that. And you can see, look at the difference between here and here. Really has a lot of interest going on. So let's start to bring a little bit more shading in, and you'll get to see how that this is going to work. So I'm just going to go over to the other side now and start to let that travel outward. You can see that I'm really hugging the edge here. This is a nice small area, but it's really got a lot going on in it and makes it much more interesting to play with. So you can see that all I'm doing is just bringing this in and really maintaining that center sheen. Now, if you lose that center sheen, you don't have to worry. You can come back in with a little bit of your eraser and you can recreate it. In fact, I'm going to deliberately have an opportunity here so that you can see it. So let's just say I lost my center. See there? I completely lost that center, right? If you've got a good eraser, or if you've got one of these, which I really, really love, these are kneaded erasers and they're wonderful. You can always come back in and just make that sheen get established again. So remember, the eraser isn't just for if you have an opportunity. You can actually work with the eraser and have it be a tool in your toolbox. So it isn't for mistakes, it's actually for creating, which I really love. And I think that these are wonderful, wonderful tool to have. So they're called a kneaded eraser and they don't cost very much. I think they're maybe like $2 at Blix or your favorite art store. And if you're a fidgeter, these are great for playing with if you love to fidget. All right, so now that we've got that part in, we're going to start to work our way down these little petals here. And you can see that all I'm doing is just hugging the outside edge and then giving it a little bit of a blur, remembering to leave the sheen in the center. And I think you'll really love the way that that turns out. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to do some final touches. I love all the definition that that has brought into the piece. Really, really pretty. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just bring in just a touch of that gray right into where we have our aura here. And you're going to see me come in and just blur that in just to give this a little bit of interest in the center here. Now once I have that, I'm going to pick back up my orange here and my yellow and my red. And we're going to start to bring in a little bit of a gemstone into the piece here. Now, for those of you who were in the Napa class, you'll know that I did a really pretty little peace sign in the center of it. If you want to put a peace sign in the center and then start to bring in your gemstone, you can see on this one I did some green on it, and that was really fun too. So you can do that, or you can just follow along with me. I'm going to keep this one nice and simple here. So I'm just going to start by coming in with a little bit of that yellowed orange. This is that lighter yellow first, and you're going to see me come across and leave a little bit of a light source right up in here. I'm going nice and light, little circles, just to create a little bit of depth here. And then I'm going to come in with a little bit of that orange, and I'll go about halfway through that yellow that we just laid down. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that crimson red that we were working with earlier inside of the roses here, and just start to bring in a little bit of that depth into the gemstone here. I'm not pressing too hard with it, but I will start to apply a little bit of pressure right along that black line. Just to give it a little bit of interest. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that yellow again. And just do little circles. Just developing a really nice softness in here. And you can see that that really brings in this kind of translucentness inside of that piece. Just love the way that looks. And if you want to add some, crazing lines in there just to give this a gemstone feel, make sure that your pencil is kind of sharpened up, and then you're going to see me just make a little crazed line in there, almost to give it like feeling of a gemstone underneath. Just little crackles, which gives that a little bit of interest. Now, if you like working with the Jelly Roll 10. This is the gel pen from Sakura. I'm going to come in with a little bit of the Jelly Roll here, and I'm just going to do a really soft arch here at the bottom, and then give it a little squared off dot up here, just to give that a little bit of interest. And then if you want to go back to where our flowers are in here, if you wanted to add just a touch of white into those orbs to get them to really kind of pop out of the piece, you can let that have a little bit of the white gel pen just to keep it interesting. Now, you can also come into these orbs in here and add a little bit of a dot in the darkest part of the orb just to keep that a little bit interesting as well. If you want to come back to budding and add a little bit of the white gel pen to budding, all I did was come in and just highlight the curve on budding, which was, I thought, a really pretty way to handle it. Just not to do too much, but just a little bit of a sheen inside of budding makes it look really, really interesting. And as you can see, I'm just kind of working my way around and adding that in. Now, some of you who were in class with me at Napa may have seen that I love to make my pieces look like watercolor, and I'm going to zoom out for this just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow just coming in right around our little flower in here, just the softest hint, and I'm just going to do it right underneath the flower there. So I'm going to turn the tile and just add a little hue of it ever so lightly, turning the tile. So I don't want it to be too much, but just enough to keep the blue in relationship with what's going on in the rest of the piece, so that when I zoom out, it has that really nice, soft, cohesive feel, which I really like. So go ahead, play, have some fun with this, and then when we come back, we're going to finish up. All right, so here we are. I'm going to go ahead and put my chop into the piece here, and I'm going to bring it down into one of these corners. And many of you know that I've been enjoying doing a ghostly kind of chop lately, and so I'm just going to come in right here with my red and put in my initial to signal that I'm finished with the piece. You might notice that I added in a little bit of my white pen into that center flux that we had there, and just gave that a little bit of juiciness, which I think looks really, really nice. And I really hope that you enjoyed working with our wallpaper and the really fun Petrikivka tangling. I think that there's something very special about working with that. And of course, the bees. The bees. They're so fun. So I hope that this was a nice hour of peace in your life, maybe even longer. And I would love to see your work over at the Tangled Yogi Art Community page on Facebook. Please come and share your work with us. We have such a great community. If you enjoyed the class today, please give the video a thumbs up or a nice review. And even better, hit the subscribe button. And even best, tell a friend about doing Zentangle in color so that more people can experience the joy of working with color and Zentangle. Well, that's it for me. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. Thanks for joining me today for the Garden of Hope. I hope that it brought a little bit of joy into your day. Bye for now.